On JoyNews Prime, Joy Clean Ghana campaign visits one of Accra's second-class residential neighborhoods, but with homes failing the sanitation test in terrible ways.
Raw excreta is being disposed, channeled through the house into the main drain, which is likely to lead to an outbreak of disease.
There was also a church where cleanliness couldn't be found next to godliness.
Asked whether it was a carpet or it was water. It was full, water filled with effluent. And where it's full, breeding mosquito, I even term it as a mosquito breeding pond.
Some residents of Takoradi hit the streets in a protest to, among other things, demand the release of details of the DNA test done on the kidnapped Takoradi girls, which declared them dead. We get an update on the police's interactions with the families of the 4 girls. President Akufo-Addo announces an end to all forms of child marriages, trafficking and slave-like activities affecting the independence and growth of the Ghanaian child. President Akufo-Addo is also expected to address the United Nations General Assembly in New York, and as always, we'll bring you that speech live in business.
As businesses lament the tough economic environment blamed on the bank's collapse, the Ghana Employers Association says it remains optimistic the economy will pick up soon.
Israel, JoyNews Prime comes to you live from the JoyNews studio at Kokomimli here in Accra. Digital address GA09925339. Stay tuned in. In our first story, the Joy Clean Ghana campaign task force on Wednesday showed up in North Carnation. Unlike the previous communities they visited, it is known as one of Accra's second-class neighborhoods. What the team saw, though, was not that complimentary. Nancy Emefa-Jaradoza reports 7 individuals were given 48 hours to improve their environment or risk being dragged to court. Now, some of the visuals could be disturbing.
The neighborhood appeared to be one without problems, but checks around the drain revealed fecal matter at the edges of the drain, with tubes from homes channeled into it.
They use their hose, they hold there, and then they jump in, and then they do their own thing, and then they use the hole to clamp up again. But here, the luckiest is they do it just the running water, so it carries it.
The team then stormed the home of Alhaji Baba.
Alayi,
yes.
I beg you. Good morning.
Morning.
Again. But you see this one.
And was met with an eyesore.
Raw excreta is being disposed, channeled through the house into the main drain, which is likely to lead to an outbreak of disease as we are in the rainy season. And we know this is the season cholera is likely to appear. And if they are disposing raw excreta through the house, the excreta is not even treated, just raw. It is an eyesore.
But you see this one.
Yeah, I see.
You are aware.
I'm not the one who did it.
Who did it?
It's my brother.
Your brother. Where is he?
He has gone out. He has gone to work.
To work.
Work.
Come and see. I want you to see it properly.
Yeah, I've seen it.
You've seen it.
Yes.
And since your brother did it, did you tell him that this thing that he has done is wrong? Because you are the head of the house.
Listen, I told him. He didn't listen to me. Then, for him, when you tell him something, you don't mind.
Even though he kept justifying the situation, the team found more offences.
Excreta is not supposed to stay in the septic, the inspection chamber. It must flow straight into the septic tank. But
yes.
Since it is not moving straight into the septic,
it's moving. Listen,
So why is it? When you say
the reason why you see the cover, the cover break.
So I want you to admit.
And stones.
you know, it's good to say you are sorry than to defend the wrong that you are doing. Because the more you defend the wrong, the more you are putting yourself into more trouble.
Shortly after, the team was met by some residents who were angry with some nuisance they had observed in their neighborhood.
From the main Abeka public toilet running through this drain, and it has been left under this gutter. They opened the toilet either in the evenings or early mornings, and you can't be here, the adult, it gives us sickness. We've got children here, and this is an international school just behind the bridge. All enters the schools and at people's homes.
Mr. Asitanga had a solution.
Yes. What we will do is that you people have to help us. Let's break Kissel under, or here, break here, Kissel. Then prepare some sand, concrete, hard concrete sand. I get me. Then we push it. Let me finish. We push it and load it. And load it and block it. You understand? So when we do that, when the effluent is coming, the concrete will kick up and block the system. It will not come, it will go back. So from there, you will be monitoring. The owner will come to see why the pipe is not flowing. The moment he comes, we arrest him. Okay.
At a popular drinking spot the team visited, members found akpeteshi, the locally brewed gin, laced with some substances.
Some medicine where the people.
Some medicine?
Yeah. It does small, this thing, but it leaves in small leaves.
So you use, what did you use to add the leaves in?
This one be only appetition. Yeah, you know the leaves.
Added the leaves to it.
Yeah.
So who has done any examination or analysis to approve this that you can sell?
Unless my boss the
see drinks with labels like cocoa, I see prekese, I see mahogany, I see waste, and then there's still cocoa, and then yellow. All these are drinks that are served to the public, but have not been approved by the Standards Authority.
50 meters away from this was another pub with similar products, also with expired drinks.
But they just added any root to anything. They call one yellow, one cramine something, which we don't know.
Just like the first, the operators both denied being in charge. At this pub, though, the operators told several fibs until he could tell no more.
By honest, I call him before we.
No, you the one seller. I need your help certificate.
I know the sell, but you know they here.
So if we close the place for now.
Yes.
All the time you are the one selling, but you are saying you are not the one selling. That's it. So if we take all the drinks out and to prepare you for court, but we haven't done anything wrong.
Maybe some get away don't make everything, but me they are
taking everything away from here and
if you take everything, what I go visa.
The sanitation inspectors observed that almost every home we visited had channeled their toilets to the major drains. Cleanliness, they say, is next to godliness, but our visit to the Glory Christian Fellowship, the opposite was being practiced.
This one there. It looks nice, Why you are part of it? Oh, very nice, but full of mosquito larvae.
From a distance, it looked like a carpet grass meant for beautification until it is stirred with a rod.
It means that the septic tank, the content is also here, mixed with the water, isn't it? It means the septic tank content is together with the wastewater.
It turns out to be water from previous rains that had been kept to cover a septic tank, with a strong stench emanating from this mosquito-infested pond.
What do you think?
It's been a month already, and the inspectors and the PRO of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly are excited about the impacts the exercise has so far, hinting the number of days may be increased.
And I can assure you that very soon in our next phase of the program, we are going to scale it up to cover more extra days and widen the timing up.
Are you ready to host the team? Well, be prepared always.
Well, I must apologize once again. It doesn't appear as if I warned you well enough about what you were to see in that story. So do accept my apologies once again. In other news, hundreds of residents in Takoradi and its environs Wednesday embarked on a demonstration to demand the resignation of the Director General of the Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service, the Minister of State in charge of National Security, and the Interior Minister over what they described as the shambolic handling of the infamous kidnapping of 4 girls in the city. The police at a news conference last week, Monday, announced DNA tests done on human remains retrieved from Takoradi were found to be that of the kidnapped girls. But the protesters, led by a Takoradi-based advocacy group, Western Youth for Justice, They will also not accept that claim and have demanded that the police continue their search for the girls. Natalia Kwanza sent in the following report.
It's all about interior must go, interior minister must go, CID boss must go, national security minister must go, demonstration. The actual demonstration is all about we didn't give the yellow very happy. We discovered the cause, and at the end of the day, we went there to demand for reform. Do you understand? We didn't go for a vote. We went there just to get the hard copy of the report.
The girls, Priscilla Blessing Bentum, 21, Priscilla Mantebia Koranche, 18, Ruth Love Kwesi, 18, and Ruth Abaka were victims of a kidnapping and murdering syndicate in the Takoradi area from July to December last year. At a recent news conference, Acting Inspector General of Police James Opon-Bueno revealed the DNA test on human remains retrieved close to the home of the key suspect was positive and says the girls are dead. A revelation 3 families out of the 4 have vehemently rejected. The demonstrators, who were clad in red and black, chanted, "We don't want bones, we want our girls," marched through the principal streets of Takoradi. John Echi, spokesperson of a Takoradi-based advocacy group, Western Youth for Justice, says Wednesday's demonstration is one of a series of planned activities to be carried out.
Send a signal to the commander-in-chief of Ghana and his appointee, that is the CID boss, the National Security Coordinator, that we will not accept the outcome of the DNA result. Simply because their utterances, their communication, and assurance that they gave to the whole world, the whole Ghana, that they have seen the girls, they have rescued them, and they were giving medical attention. So for that matter, we are thinking that maybe the kidnappers are demanding for a ransom. But that is what Chua Adodankwa called one of the affected families. Their mother and told her that the kidnappers are demanding for a ransom, which is very huge.
The demonstrators also presented a petition to the regional minister demanding the resignation of CID officer they only identified as Ametepe. They also want the former commander of the Takoradi Central Police Station, who was handling the case, to also resign from the service. Benjamin Mensah, a spokesperson for Imagine Takoradi, an advocacy group.
And if you listen to the story from that of the family, you get to see, hear so much inconsistencies from what they are telling us. And I mean, the resident will not take it that the bones really belongs to the girls. What they are saying is they want the girls back alive. And if of course it is that the bones belongs to the girls, then we are demanding the CID boss to step down, because her office is not a bakery shop. Her office is not a bakery shop. But she can just come up and then start saying things and then go stop doing. Unless it is an acceptable society, let us not do that.
Well, Thalia Kwanza, who is with Radio Max, an affiliate of JoyNews, joins us via Skype with some more information on the demands of the protesters as well as that of the families. Hello, Ina. Hello, Ina. If you can hear me, I'd want to know your interactions with the family. Have you been able to establish if the police have made any approaches to them at all after the announcement was made?
Okay, so I talked to some 3 of the families who have said they do not accept the DNA test. They tell me that ever since they broke the news to them that the DNA test was positive, the police have not visited them again.
All right, so which of the families have you spoken with?
So I've spoken with the Kwesins family. I've also spoken with the Bentums, and then that of Ruth Abeka, the first victim to have been kidnapped in July last year. They have all confirmed that ever since the news was broken last week, the police have not come back to them.
All right, now the protesters who went out onto the streets today are demanding, among other things, that the police release the detailed DNA results that they conducted on the human remains. Have the families made a formal approach to the police for that?
Yes, so yesterday, the three families went to the regional police headquarters. They had an interaction with the regional police commander that they need a hard copy of the DNA result. They said they told the regional commander, and he says that he would forward their request to Accra. So as and when he gets a feedback, he will let them know. Or if there is a need for them to travel to Accra, to the police headquarters to meet the IGP for the result too, he would equally communicate to them.
All right, thank you very much, Ina Thalia Kwanzaa, with that update from Takoradi. A Right to Information activist has cast doubt about government meeting the 2020 deadline on the implementation of the Right to Information law, despite its passage. According to Mina Mensah, the regional coordinator of the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, the country is not ready to go ahead with it. She made this known in an interview at a public forum on the implementation of the law. Philip Anchorage report read to you.
The law, which was passed in March 2019 after some decades of campaigning and advocacy, seeks to operationalize the constitutional right to demand information from public officers that are necessary and consistent with safeguarding the public interest in a democratic state. Regional coordinator of the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, Mina Mensah, believes government has not met the requirement of establishing information units in all public offices, as well as recruitment and training of information officers to manage those units.
The ministry drew up a roadmap and shared it with stakeholders, and we had discussions. And there were certain things that we were supposed to do by 2020. One of the things was to train information officers, recruit them and train them. Another was to set up the Information Commission. Another was the LI, the legal framework or the legal instrument. And looking at where we are now, we are in September. Most of the things have not been done, not because of people's unwillingness to do the work or the ministry's unwillingness or stakeholders' unwillingness, but a lot of these things depend on funding. And the funding has not been made available. We just heard that the Ministry of Finance has made some funding available. How much funding? We are in this country and we know how disbursements are done. You do a budget for a certain amount and you are giving about 1/8 of that amount. So due to that, I do not think as a people we are ready.
But investigative journalist Manasseh Azuri-Awene says despite the unavailability of the structures to govern the implementation, it should not be a hindrance.
So whilst we are putting these structures in place, it shouldn't be a prerequisite for the implementation of the RTI. And I'm saying this because the ministries, departments and agencies already have what it takes to give information out to people who need them. Go to any ministry now and you look at one employee who has been working since the 1970s. Whatever they have done, you find it on their files. But they sign a contract with My Money last month. You go there and they cannot find a contract. So I think it is very intentional. So if we are going to put these structures in place, fine. But we shouldn't use that as the basis to say we are not ready yet.
Member of the Coalition on the Right to Information Law, Akoto Ampao, revealed that implementing an effective and efficient RTI will be a challenge because people are not willing to give out information. He called on civil societies to join forces to deal with the situation.
Getting the law implemented to ensure that we have an effective and efficient institutional infrastructure that enables citizens and other people to access information as of right is going to be a far more difficult challenge. One, because of the fears of those who wield power, because of their resistance and comfort with governance in secrecy, and therefore civil society and other champions of the right to information need to band together and work assiduously to ensure that we have indeed an effective institution, an effective system of record creation, record storage, and easy retrieval upon request.
The forum forms part of activities to mark this year's International Right to Know Day and was organized by the Media Foundation for West Africa. For JoyNews, Philip Ankress reports.
Now, when the suspects arrested in connection with the alleged coup plot appear in court on October 9, state prosecutors will make available to the court video and audio recordings cataloging the alleged intention to overthrow government and destabilize the country. That's according to Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah. The 4 persons are currently in prison custody after being slapped with 5 counts, including conspiracy to commit crime, manufacturing of arms and ammunition, and possession of explosives, firearms, and ammunition without lawful authority. The suspects and their lawyer, Victor Adaudu, are of the firm belief the whole episode is a state-sponsored plot designed to denigrate them. But speaking to JoyNews, Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah said concrete evidence will be adduced to the court soon.
For instance, including at least 1 officer have been detained and are being interrogated as a result of the investigations that are going on into this matter. That interrogation is ongoing, and that when they are done, they will also be put before the appropriate forum and charged accordingly. I think that the important thing for everybody to do is to be calm and to allow the processes and the law enforcement agencies to go through their processes and to all unfold. The evidence that the informers they have, including audio-visual recordings, etc., they will have to make all of that evidence before the courts of competent jurisdiction for the proper adjudication. You and I and all of us listening or watching do not have the capacity to litigate this matter on television or on radio or in our social media groups. And what we need to do is to allow the courts and the prosecutors to do a diligent job, one that will satisfy all of us at the end of the day. Well, I think again this morning as I spoke to one of your colleagues, Daniel Dazi, I mentioned to him that we have to be fair to some of the analysts that you are calling and inviting to purport to analyze what they haven't seen. I have heard reports of some analysts making comments, and the question I ask is whether or not these analysts have seen the full body of evidence that is available, whether they've seen the visual material, whether they have read the transcripts of the plans that these persons are alleged to have, whether they've had an opportunity to examine for themselves the kind of evidence. Obviously, they have not. And so whatever commentary that they are making or whatever commentary that people are making on some of the platforms that you talk about will be without the benefit of having examined the body of evidence that is available. I believe it will be based on primarily perhaps the statement that we have put out, rather than they have in social media, etc.
You are one of the architects of the June 4 uprising, Osahene Boachijang, who has cautioned government to tread cautiously in investigating the attempted coup plot involving military officers.
I can understand why they have to do what they have, because the government is in trouble. Yes. I mean, everything they touch has gone wrong. Traditional chief pitched against another traditional chief, you know, free SHS. It's neither free nor fair, you know, because I have people come to me asking for money to organize holiday classes for their wards. How free is that? You see, and so forth and so forth. Go and ask the parents or associates of the Takoradi girls and ask them whether they are happy with what's going on in Ghana today. You see, so all of that and many more that is too long to list made this government very nervous. Because you have only 1 year left. There's nothing wrong in losing an election. So we should not encourage them to think that they can create any coup mentality in this country. In a kind, we call it coherency story.
And Jane say, or see a funny serious kaka because on my surveillance for 15 months, on my studio, my coons a BBC.
Were you a party of the surveillance?
No,
was I a party? So we cannot discuss confirm the truth or otherwise of this story.
Okay, so
That's why I would invite us to listen patiently.
We're taking a break here on JoyNews Prime, but still ahead. President Akufo-Addo announces an end to all forms of child marriages, trafficking and slave-like activities affecting the independence and growth of the Ghanaian child. And then in business, as businesses lament the tough economic environment blamed on the bank's collapse, the Ghana Employers Association says it remains optimistic the economy will pick up soon. We have all that and more coming up in a bit. Stay tuned in. Tell you about women making babies to please their husbands. Family planning is what they called it, and the campaign was massive many years ago. But for women in the Volta region village of Mangu, there are children and pregnant mothers everywhere. Now that the community has been gifted a birthing center following a JoyNews documentary, Gift Turned Up Here has been speaking with them about family planning. Here's a profile of 4 young women, 3 of them teenage mothers, and all of them school dropouts.
Was only 19 years old when I first met her. She had 1 child then. Today, I am meeting her again. She has had 1 more and has a 3rd baby on the way.
When I deliver this one, I'll take a break, but it's left with 1 more.
At the time, Happy had freshly dropped out of school, and occasionally she cooked for the man who made her pregnant. Now, she lives with him. Like in many villages, teenage pregnancy is very common here. Jennifer Agbasa's husband tells me his mother-in-law says his wife is 19. Jennifer seems a bit younger, but she tells me she has been married for 2 years. She's carrying her first child. Jennifer dropped out of school at class 3.
We were evicted from where we lived. I had no option but to sleep in town.
Jennifer's story does not really add up, but she also says she'd like to go back to the classroom even if she has to start at class 4. Daniel Ajaho, her husband, will not allow that.
She will not go. If she goes to school, she will leave, so she will be a seamstress.
One of the most touching stories I heard here at Mangu Tideke is that of Precious. Precious is 19 years old. She has had 1 child and is expecting a 2nd. She dropped out of school in the first term of her first year at Enum Senior High School.
I'm just making cocoa for selling.
And she finds the porridge sales profitable because her husband, who is a driver, compliments her efforts. But her story may sound very familiar to many.
My mother, the woman that I stay with, the woman said that she did not have enough money for paying my school fees, so I should pack my things and go to my father's house.
Getting pregnant by the man she is with now was a breakthrough for her. She had nowhere to live and no money to finish school. Precious tells me her heart is at peace now. She desires to go back to school also, but like the others, she is not sure she can do that with 2 children on her hands. Besides, her husband, who wants more children, may not allow it.
Yes, he was saying that, but not me. Who is saying that I will have 4 children? He is saying that because I'm not the head. He is the head for me. So whatever he said, that I could do.
After my conversation with her, however, she promises to convince her husband to stay at 2 children for now. Bless Akakbo is about the only woman here I've interacted with who is able to express herself evenly. Bless has completed an NVTI course in auto engineering, a program sponsored by the Ministry of Gender and Social Protection, but which ended in 2013.
My parents don't have money to send me to the other side, so I joined a man. So I'm with him now. But he said he don't have money again. That's why I'm in the house. If I can get somebody to sponsor me to go back to SS, I'll go and do general arts. I want to be a nurse. That's what I planned for my future before.
In fact, she wants to try governance-free SHS, but she says she needs someone to take her through the necessary processes and will do so once her 6-month-old baby is grown enough to be left for someone. Like the others, the number of children Bless can have is dependent on what her husband says.
I'm with a man. If the man said 2 is enough, then it's okay.
The last time I saw Bless, though, She has had some family planning injections. She still has general arts on her wish list as a course to pursue so she can become a nurse. But if that does not happen, she wants to continue in auto engineering so she can fix vehicles. This is the story of several women here in Mangu Tideke, and it is one of the reasons why the chief executive of the district must hasten to have a nurse posted at the new delivery center gifted to the community. A nurse who will not only support the village chief, who is their midwife, but will encourage and guide family planning in this village. The fact that getting pregnant was the only way to survive for some of the women here who had to drop out of school to be mothers is also the reason for the next project in Mangu Tideke, a classroom block to attract the children into early education. I will tell you more of the classroom project in the next story on Mangu Tideke. Gifty Andopia, JoyNews, Mangu Tideke, Volta region.
President Akufo-Addo has announced an end to all forms of child marriage, trafficking and slave-like activities affecting the independence and growth of the Ghanaian child. The initiative, dubbed Operation Get Off the Streets, aims to provide children an atmosphere that encourages growth and proper development. Addressing the 30th anniversary of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, President Akufo-Addo said government, through the free education program in the basic education category, is ridding the Ghanaian society of poverty, ignorance and diseases.
We have ensured in Ghana that poverty is no longer a stumbling block to the access of education by our children by a policy of free senior high school. I'm glad that we're now able to say that education in the public sector is free from kindergarten to senior high school, which we have redefined as basic education. This initiative has resulted in a significant increase in pupil enrollment, with 1.2 million children currently in senior high school, the highest in our nation's history. We've also made considerable progress in reducing childhood mortality and morbidity through effective national immunization campaigns and universal coverage of primary health care for all Ghanaians, particularly children. We are committed to ending child marriage and eradicating all forms of child labor, trafficking, and slave-like practices in line with SDG 8. Quote, Operation Get Off the Street Now for a Better Life, unquote, has been initiated, and the Ghana Child Labor Monitoring Information System has been reactivated. As we commemorate the 30th anniversary of the adoption of this convention, we remember the words of the late Secretary General of the United Nations, our illustrious compatriot, Kofi Annan, who, at the special session of the UN for Children in New York in May 2002, said, and I quote, "History will judge us by the difference we make in the everyday lives of children," unquote.
Well, the Ghanaian child wants more. Listen to 10-year-old Jile Hakman responding to the President's initiative at the United Nations UNICEF program.
Yes, we have made some progress, but much more needs to be done for children living in poverty and neglect, children living in war and conflict situations, and children living in refugee and migrant communities. On the daily news, I see scary and troubling images and hear terrible stories of the condition that these children, through no fault of theirs, are made to endure. I see the effects of famine on children, and I also see those children whose future is jeopardized due to negative cultural practices such as child marriage and female genital mutilation. As the great African icon President Nelson Mandela once stated, there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way it treats its children. As we commemorate 30 years of the CRC, we call on the world to recommit to the convention and to take necessary steps to protect and safeguard the future of every child. This should be a turning moment for all to commit to accelerated action to address climate change and to implement the Sustainable Development Goals.
Government has announced plans to establish a pension scheme for cocoa farmers across the country. The scheme, put together by the National Pensions Regulatory Authority, is expected to give retired cocoa farmers a source of income once it becomes operational. Latif Idris reports.
Speaking at the 20th anniversary of Olam Ghana, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia touched on concerns that a number of cocoa farmers are fast approaching retirement age, and there is a need to ensure they live comfortably.
We are also working with the National Pension Regulatory Authority to introduce a pension scheme for cocoa farmers. A pension scheme for cocoa farmers. Work on this has been far advanced, and we expect another, round of presentations at the Economic Management Team by the National Pension Regulatory Authority before we submit it to Cabinet for approval. But I think it's quite advanced. But it's very, very important that a pension scheme for cocoa farmers is put in place so that once they retire, they will have a source of income. And which would be very important.
Government has also started the Youth in Cocoa initiative to attract and support young people with the necessary interventions to engage in cocoa production in the country.
A major threat to sustainable cocoa production is the aging cocoa farmers and the lack of interest shown by the youth in cocoa farming. To reverse this trend, Ghana Cocoa Board is implementing the Youth in Cocoa initiative with the goal to attract young men and women into cocoa farming. The program has identified young men and women who are interested in cocoa farming and has provided them with the necessary support. These youth groups are being used as advocacy groups to prove to other young men and women that cocoa farming is lucrative.
He said a child education support program has also been initiated to eliminate child labor in cocoa growing communities across the country.
A coalition of 25 civil society groups is pushing for the passage into law the Affirmative Action Bill, which is currently before Parliament. The Affirmative Action Coalition insists the time has come for women to be given equal rights and opportunities, dispelling the notion that women are seeking to play the roles of men. Speaking during the launch of the coalition in Accra, convener Sheila Minkapremo was optimistic the activities of the coalition will fast-track the passage of the law. There's more in the following report by Efwa Evans-Chinri.
Affirmative action is a set of needed actions designed to correct the history of systematic discrimination and exclusion of women in the decision-making process. The first draft of the proposed law to change this was completed in 2013. The bill seeks to promote a progressive increase in active participation of women in public life from a minimum of 30% to a parity of 50% by 2030, in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. Convener of the group advocating the passage of the law, Sheila Minkapremo, says the group hopes the 2019 bill will be passed before the 2020 general elections.
The steering committee have been thinking about a few issues. They always bring it before members at general meetings. So decisions have been taken on a number of issues, which I'll just run through. So the goal of the coalition, initially the goal was to push for the passage of an affirmative action bill by the end of this year. We realized it wasn't possible. So the goal has been modified to push for the passage of an affirmative action bill into law before the dissolution of the current parliament. We know that the current parliament will finish their work in December 2020. So, Honorable, we are hoping that before you finish your work, this bill will become law. The objectives are to coordinate CSO activities to ensure the passage of the AA bill into law, to provide knowledge materials and share such information on the AA bill, to undertake advocacy activities on the bill, to track and update stakeholders on the bill, and to push for the passage of the bill into law. A logo has been developed. It was developed by a very young member of our group, a national service person who worked in my office, who threw the idea to, she came up with a logo. So the nice logo you see there was developed by her. She's called Mama Biama. She's not here with us today, but it was her contribution. We've put together rules of engagement, some guidelines to guide how the group will work, and drafts have been prepared, and we held a general meeting on Friday, the 20th, and it was endorsed. I'm sure that with time we will set up a website, etc., and put it all out there so that access to it will be very easy and everybody knows what rules we are working with.
Chairman of the Legal, Constitutional and Parliamentary Affairs Committee of Parliament, Mr. Ben Abdallah Banda, says the bill is at the consideration stage and is hopeful that it will be passed as soon as possible.
In constituting governing boards of public establishments in legislation in Parliament, Parliament has always intentionally reserved places for women. Madam Chairperson, the passage of the Affirmative Action Bill into a law will therefore consolidate our efforts, change our mindsets, and facilitate our trajectory to achieving gender parity. We don't have to tarry in ensuring that the Affirmative Action Bill, which is still at the consideration stage, is brought to Parliament as quickly as possible. When it is so brought to Parliament, I'm sure, I don't know what the Speaker is going to do, but I'm sure that the Speaker will refer this bill to the Committee on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, and probably to the Committee on Gender. And jointly, these two committees will work on the bill and will ensure that this bill is worked on with the speed or alacrity that it deserves.
The Affirmative Action Bill, which has suffered a number of setbacks, will increase the participation of women in decision-making.
While Municipal Chief Executive Isahaku Tahiru Mumin will be hoping come Saturday to make it a hat-trick when he pitches his strength against 4 other aspirants in the New Patriotic Party parliamentary primary. For the first time, 2 women will contest. APOS correspondent Rafiq Salam reports that campaign for the right to represent the MPP in Ward Central has been characterized by confusion.
If you put all the New Patriotic Party MPP parliamentary aspirants and aides into a boxing ring, it will be so crowded there will barely be enough room for any of them to swing a punch. But there is no doubt which one is the political heavyweight. Isahaku Tahiru Mumin brings the status of having been twice parliamentary candidate in 2012 and 2016, though his Ward Central constituency political career does not span beyond dozen years. Then a political rookie, in 2011, he contested the constituency primary for the first time and won shortly after his 34th birthday. The chartered accountant turned politician, however, could not make it to Parliament as he was pummeled by a more experienced Dr. Rashid Hassan Pelepu. He was, however, tipped to win the 2016 election despite contesting from an underdog position, though he managed to close the over 1,000 vote gap to 520. Supporters of the party, including the constituency chairman Ali Kamara, solely blame him for the defeat. Chairman Kamara accused him of hoarding and diverting campaign funds for his personal benefit, an allegation that Isahaku Tahiru Mumin has strenuously denied. The subsequent nomination of Isahaku Tahiru Mumin as Ward MCE has not bettered their strained relationship. Many occasions, they go for each other's jugular vein on the media.
A group of people were there terrorizing people. And I find out the composition of the people, and the message we got was that that team was led by my own party chairman.
My brother, you are enjoying your MCA. I'm not enjoying it. It's time for me to enjoy my chairmanship. Today, you want to hijack the chairmanship too.
The War Office of the Municipal Chief Executive sometimes serves as a battleground for party supporters to settle scores with the MCE. Despite the odds being against him, Isahaku Tahiru Mumin still remains the upper dog in the race. However, one aspirant who seemed to gel well with most of the constituency executives is founder and Chief Executive Officer of Haji Umu Foundation, Umu Audu. The Limai Republic started wants the delegates to look at the public service record of the aspirants and not insults and vituperations.
When things are given to people to bring to them, it doesn't get to them. When Hajia came, I'm able to lobby to get them their mass lock loans. I'm able to get them some supplies. I'm able to get them school feeding. I'm able to get scholarship to the young ones to leave to Cuba and study. I'm able to get scholarship to lobby, get scholarship from Get Fund as well, to get some of them to UK and other places to study.
Her cousin, Janet Bibi, nicknamed Bihima, is not new in the contest. She has been at this stage before and got beaten by a whisker. She is, however, hopeful that the 808 delegates will choose her above the 4 other candidates.
You know, we women, we know our problems. And you know, most of my constituent women, we are business women. So I will make sure I get loans and grants to help them push their businesses and be able to take care of our smaller ones through their education. So I'm coming back to continue what I left behind.
Another new entrant that seems to be making waves in the campaign is Alhaji Nuruddin Ahmed Froko, better known as Alanki. Alanki seems to know the reasons why the MPP failed to annex the seat from the NDC, and if given the opportunity, he will succeed.
You have seen the trend that we have moved from 92 to 2016. The margin is just about 571. And we have identified the factors that militated against our winning. And we have corrected that, and we will win.
Salifu Abubakar Orison described himself as a born MPP man. He is worried that a seat which was the preserve of the forebears of the MPP, has eluded them for over 40 years.
In terms of development, I think it is very, 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 very clear that WA Central is lacking behind when it comes to development. And for me, if you ask me, I will tell you it's as a result of MPP not being able to win the parliamentary in WA Central. That is one of the major reasons why it's not being able to catch up development.
Whoever wins after Saturday will have a lot of reconciliation to do, considering the deep-seated division that has characterized the campaigns. Failure to do that, the party will continue to pride itself with former parliamentary candidates and not a member of parliament. Reporting for JoyNews, Rafiq Salam. Wow.
Yes, we're supposed to have brought you the President's address at the UN General Assembly. It hasn't happened yet, that's why we haven't brought it to you. But up next, we're bringing you PM Express, and somewhere along the line during the program, should the President speak, we will bring you his address. But that's it. I am Mr. Lai. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good night. PM Express, as I said, comes up next. It's Evans Mensah with the Deputy Chief of Staff. Do stay tuned in.